Hi, it's Kim Weeks with the new show Reset. It's April 24th. And today in my kitchen, I'm going to talk about the value, cost efficiency, and digestive benefits of eating soup. Before I do that, random dead worms in a jar for my kids as they gave me a gift in my kitchen. They love to dig for worms. It's spring in Washington and I cannot see where the worms are. It's making me a little nervous and sad. But yeah, this is just the best example of like communication in the family. My husband brings it in, puts it on the countertop where I cook food, and of course I don't want to kill the worms because I know my kids love them, and so the jar sits here. Here is the stuff I was going to talk about. The peas for pea soup, and then my overwintered kale for my garden, which I'm just so proud of. You know, I'm basically like lived underneath all of the snow that we had in Washington, and for $1 for a little packet of seeds, we wound up with, oh my gosh, I don't know, 10, 15 plants that just keep giving. We're giving it away because we can't eat that much kale. Anyway, this bag of pea soup, which I'm going to talk about, this bag of peas, which goes into the pea soup, is $1.29 at Trader Joe's. These onions are maybe 50 cents. So basically, you need 2 pounds of peas and 2 onions and broth. This is homemade chicken broth, which I've talked about on the show before. This is homemade vegetable broth, which I've talked about on the show before. You can buy this broth for much more money than making it, but you know, that is really, and I'll do this in an upcoming segment, the sort of time value of money, whether it makes sense for you to make broth at home for less money or go buy broth and have that real nutritional value in basically in a mineral and sort of vitamin way enhanced water. That's basically what it is, like chicken water and vegetable water, and that's extremely good for your gut. So basically with pea soup, you saute these onions for 5 to 7 minutes until they become translucent-ish on a relatively low heat. You always really want to, unless you absolutely have to, you don't want to burn an onion. Then you throw the peas in, then you throw about 1 quart of chicken broth in, bring it to a boil, skim it off, and simmer. It simmers for 15 minutes, and when you cook and you see that in a cookbook, like 10 to 15 minutes of any simmering of anything is kind of code for letting the flavors meld. When the flavors meld, that's really when the soup is, or the dish is at its sort of best flavor height. So at that point, turn it off. And you season it at that point with salt, and I really highly recommend green peppercorns if you can find them. Penzies.com is a totally awesome place to buy some of the best spices around. And season it to your taste with just pepper. If you want black pepper, fine, but green pepper I think is better. And then this thing is like $20 or $30, and it is one of the most essential kitchen tools that I think anybody could use. It's an immersion blender. Boom. You put it in your, pot, and you basically puree your pea soup. And then you're done. With your pureed soup, you can use sour cream or creme fraiche. More expensive, less expensive, more expensive, less expensive, basically the same. And that's your soup. And it's a backbone to a meal, especially for people who eat a lot of vegetables or people who are vegetarians. Quick last shout out to my lovely kale. The same concept that I used for sauteing the onions and putting the peas in and making it a soup is what you can do with let's call it kale stew. It's so easy. For this much kale, which is more than a bunch, you would probably use 2 onions. For a bunch of kale, which is about half, you would use 1 onion. Chop the onion up. You're not going to be pureeing this, so you probably want to chop the onion a little more finely, depending on how you like your onion. Big chunks, then fine. Small chunks, which we prefer, are better. Saute it, and then you can do like a kind of a quick and easy caramelizing of the onion by, once it turns translucent, turn the heat up really high, put this in. This is like 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, and as the alcohol content of the vinegar evaporates, the sugars of the vinegar, of the former vinegar, starts to coat the onion and make it really sweet. And so the sweetness combined with the bitterness of the kale makes it a delicious side dish. Basically, put it on rice, put it on pasta, and you should add a little bit of broth to help it simmer and help the kale become a little bit more less crunchy, a little bit more edible. I have these tomatoes out because this is also a nice addition to your kale stew. You can throw this in with the kale if you like tomatoes, but if you don't, then don't. My son, of course, for, I don't know, 2 years was like, tomatoes, I love them in kale. And of course, he's 3 years old. Who hasn't heard this from a 3-year-old? I don't like it anymore. And so now it's just kale with no tomatoes. It's Kim Weeks with a new show, Reset. The recipes will be below in the comments section of this post, and I'll see you again soon.